Welcome back. Hi, and welcome back to the Wealthy Warlock. We have an exciting video for you today. Some little known research into the natural coupling effects of inner neurology between individuals of otherwise seemingly external environments. Recently, I was listening to the Telepathy tapes podcast, and have done a little bit of research into Jacobo Greenberg's work, and am now going to be a bit more vocal about this stuff because I'm seeing some AI out there interpreting this material and interpreting it incorrectly. So I'm going to warn everybody, if you are out there researching this material, be careful what material you are getting a hold of and consuming, because a lot of it is watered down, washed out with the important information for cliche new age information, and is actually missing the core scientific aspects of these concepts in favor of deceptive practices. Not happy to admit that. We did see the same thing happen with Alan Watts. Alan Watts was pretty much quickly taken up by AI and started to produce new Alan Watts material using his own voice, and even in some videos of him saying things that he didn't actually say. And as such, this is going to become a lot more rampant. And this is one of the big reasons why telepathy and inner work for you is so important, because these are the things that the digital convergence that is being forced upon the world right now will bring each of us as human beings back into the center of ourselves to ask us the fundamental question, which is at the base of law in the world. And that is that you're a vessel. In all law, from all the research in dictionaries that I've seen, the most extensive etymology that I've seen into the idea of what a human is, what a person is, what a living being is, a monster, a serf, a Yao man, a forest man, a free man, a man on the land, a sovereign, an independent, a sovereign. It doesn't really matter what word you use. They all have different connotations and different aspects. However, they all have one very similar common trait, and that is each one of them describes us, the beings that walk around on the planet here. I'm not talking about the extended legal definition of person, which includes companies. I'm talking about, like biological humans. What we're talking about with that is a vessel in law. All of these things as persons or humans in law are vessels. And the question that they ask in law is, do you want us to fill you up because you haven't figured out how to fill yourself up? And in which case you'll need representation of a lawyer and for us to judge on your behalf. Or are you capable of managing your own affairs and fill yourself up with the Creator or the Lord? And as such are able to manage and govern your own affairs. And if you are, that's where you get to bring your court to the court for them to court your court. Getting off track. Today's video is about all of this, and so important to it all because it is about how we are connected in the center of our brains. Straight into it, we have a PDF research document that I'm going to go into just now. I'll share it so you can read it and see the scans that will come up on the screen as we go through. Okay, so that one is there on my screen. It should be working on yours. I'll zoom in a little bit so it's easier for everybody to see. Leading edge neuroscience reveals significant correlations between beliefs, the whole brain state, and psychotherapy. Now, this is a paper that was done by Robert M. Williams in conjunction with Jeffrey L. Fannin, Ph.D. Robert M. Williams was and is the creator for, or instigatory facilitator for the practice known as Psych-K, the neurological technology described as Psych-K. Psych, P-S-Y-C-H hyphen K, commonly interpreted as mind key. The key to the mind is within unifying the two hemispheres, synchronizing the brain state, and this goes hand in hand with the principles taught in fundamental esoterics, hidden knowledge sources throughout history, that when you bring together both polarities and find a way that they can coincide without harming one another, then the product of the two will always result in a third. And that's what we usually refer to as evolution, where something emerges out of a system of poetic interaction in the elements of that system. Something then comes out of that, and all of the elements are roughly described in a incorrect binary sense as masculine and feminine, or light and dark, or up and down, or polar and non-polar, Asian and Cation, Cation and Anyan, that's it, and all of these different things. But here we will see real scans of how Psych-K can help bring together the two hemispheres of the mind, allowing more capacity, more data, more feedback, more information, more coherence, and more ability for you as a human being to facilitate your own experience of life and to navigate and govern your own decisions in your daily processes. Finally straightened. The latest understandings in neuroscience are revealing important information for psychotherapists. This article is designed to inform you about some of the key elements of those new understandings, including the importance of subconscious beliefs, very important, the whole brain state, and the basic mechanisms of the mind-brain interface, all of which can assist you in being more effective with your clients. Let's begin by defining two key terms in this article. The first is belief. The dictionary defines belief as something one accepts as true or real, a firmly held opinion or conviction. From our perspective, the origin of beliefs can be traced back to conclusions drawn from past experience, i.e. fire can hurt me because I've had an experience with fire that demonstrated that once before. Beliefs can be both conscious and or subconscious. The second term is whole brain state. This is a state of coherency in the brain marked by a bilateral symmetrical brainwave pattern, allowing for maximum communication data flow between the left and right hemispheres. Bilateral, as in down the middle, and then symmetrical, like this. And that was where I just put my hand like that. So cut down the middle and then across the bridge through the corpus callosum, which would be those little blue lines there. Whoops. Those little blue lines there, that's where the brain will unify through the middle like that. Of course, around the brainstem, it's just, so you see the whole brain, because we usually have a whole brain. It's just usually not in a state of whole brainness due to stress and other impactors. However, so what do these, the second term is whole brain state of coherency in the brain marked by a bilateral symmetrical brainwave pattern, allowing for maximum communication data flow between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. So what do these terms have to do with psychotherapy? The surprising answer is everything! What does the brain synchronizing information and the ability to move information around the brain have to do with psychotherapy? Psychotherapy is psychology, mental health, your mind. What does brain synchronization, what does the two hemispheres being able to communicate mean to you in your life? Everything. If we accept that the overall goal of psychotherapy is to produce fully functional human beings, then being able to optimize belief systems and brain function is a major factor in accomplishing that goal. Consider the role of beliefs in our lives. Beliefs are like filters on a camera. What the camera sees is a function of the filters through which it is viewing its subject. In other words, how we see the world is a function of our beliefs and profoundly influences our personality. As a result of our beliefs, we define ourselves as worthy or worthless. Powerful or powerless, competent or incompetent, trusting or suspicious, belonging or outcast, self-reliant or dependent, flexible or judgmental, fairly treated, victimized, loved or hated. We can keep going on. Your beliefs have far-reaching consequences, both positive and negative, in your own life. Beliefs affect your moods, relationships, job performance, self-esteem, physical health, even your religious and spiritual outlook. I'm going to add a note here. Before your conscious awareness even knows what's going on. That's what the subconscious is in the unconscious, outside of your field of awareness. So the subconscious does all of this, and you don't even know, and you sit there and go, I'm making up my own mind of my own free will. There are a lot of factors that govern into how you make decisions, and I'm not denying your capacity for free will. All I'm saying is it's a lot more complicated than you may think it is, and that complication is where you can learn a lot of self-empowerment, hence the video here. Your beliefs have far-reaching consequences, both positive and negative, in your life. Beliefs affect your moods, relationship, job performance, even your spiritual outlook. Most psychotherapists deal with one or more of these issues on a regular basis with their clients. Clients are often plagued by beliefs that are self-limiting. Consequently, the ability to help individuals change self-limiting beliefs into self-empowering beliefs is of great value in the psychotherapeutic environment. Beliefs can be conscious or subconscious. We are using the word conscious in its ordinary sense as awareness of your environment, as in your awareness of your environment. Conscious means in your awareness. We are using the word subconscious as awareness below the conscious level, like a hard drive in a computer. This is where most of the belief system software is stored, and like a computer memory, the data are stored not in the central processing chip itself, but rather in the energy field that surrounds and interprets the chip. There is an analogous relationship with the brain and mind, respectively. This software is largely responsible, that's an analogy provided by these guys. There is an analogous relationship with brain mind, respectively. This software is largely responsible for our habitual thoughts and behaviors, habits and behaviors. Keep in mind, psychology and psychotherapy usually considers you as an individual to be a collection of those things. Okay, so you are using your conscious mind is the collection of your awareness of these things. Subconsciously, there's a lot more. I'm sure there's more to it. If you're in that field, you'd probably fact check me on that and add a bunch more to it. But like all short descriptions, there's a lot to be left out of that, and as such, there is elements of it that is incorrect. It'll suffice for the current. I love this part though. Advances in neuroscience have provided important information about the subconscious mind. For example, in a study cited in Harvard Professor Emeritus Gerald Zaltman's book, Harvard Professor, How Customers Think, Neuroscience reveals that at least 95% of our thoughts and decisions originate at the subconscious level of the mind. That leaves a very small percentage of our decision-making capacity for the conscious mind to exercise. This is an analogy. I'm not saying this is where your subconscious mind is. It's like saying that this is your conscious mind. It's not. It's part of it, and this is part of your subconscious. But this is just analogous to human pointing to the back, and this is to the front. Front meaning in your field of awareness, back meaning below or behind your field of awareness. So don't quote me on that. It's a thing in neurology. That leaves a very small percentage of our decision-making capacity for the conscious mind to actually exercise. These subconscious beliefs, 5% of our mind. That leaves 5% of your mind in your own awareness and control. These subconscious beliefs create the perceptual filters through which we respond to life's challenges. So while we may be mostly unaware of their influence on us, mostly unaware, as in not like, chances are you'll probably know, but if you don't, it's mostly, I mean literally in this context, mostly, 95%, most of it is outside of your awareness. Mostly unaware of their influence on us. Our subconscious beliefs largely direct our observable actions and behaviors. They direct them. They form the basis of our actions and reactions to each new situation in our lives. Another important quality of the subconscious mind is its processing capacity. In his book, The User Illusion, Cutting Consciousness Down to Size, author, Tor Norotranders provides important information about the processing capacity of the conscious and subconscious minds. As remarkable as it may seem, the conscious mind processes information at an approximate rate of 40 bits of information per second, while the subconscious mind processes approximately 40 million bits of information per second. Ironically, most standard approaches to psychotherapy address only the 40-bit processor, i.e. the conscious mind, while the enormous power of a 40 million bit processor, i.e. the subconscious mind, is largely unutilized. And that's why psychology, for the most part, is persistence. Is because you're pushing back against the tidal wave by using tiny bits of water, splashing water at a wave, and you're trying to change that. It does work over a period of time, persistence and strength on your part as an individual. So, what about the whole brain state? Like, is this real? A great deal of research has been conducted for decades on what has come to be called brain dominance theory, also known as split brain research. The findings of this research indicate that, in general, each hemisphere of the cerebral cortex tends to specialize in and preside over different functions, process different kinds of information, and deals with different kinds of problems. Left hemisphere, right hemisphere. For the most part, neurology hates it when we do that, because it's really deceptive. It's like saying that atoms are like billiard balls. They're not like billiard balls. All that example is that they are kind of spherical and sometimes they bounce off of each other. That's as far as that analogy goes. These examples do have evidence to suggest that the left brain does sometimes take priority over these, and the right brain sometimes does have areas of function in these. They equally don't, and they equally do at the same time in different ways, as we'll see more of. Everyone who knows anything about currently what's going on around the internet knows about the left and right hemisphere. I'm not going to list those off. You can see them there. It should be obvious from the qualities and characteristics described above that ideal brain functioning would be the ability to simultaneously utilize both sides of the cerebral cortex. However, life experiences often trigger a dominance of one side over the other when responding to specific situations. The more emotionally charged the experience, usually traumatic, the more likely it will be stored for future reference, and the more likely we will automatically, as in outside of our awareness, over-identify with only one hemisphere when faced with similar life experiences in the future. As a psychotherapist, the ability to help clients achieve a balanced identification with both hemispheres of the brain, i.e. the whole brain state, with respect to past traumatic experiences is paramount in helping them to achieve a new perspective of their past. This new perspective can free them from the habitual perspective held in the subconscious, which can make a past trauma into a current nightmare. By perceiving a past traumatic experience with a new whole brain filters, clients can be freed from the automaticity of past perceptions which limit their happiness and well-being. Literally what he's saying here is also diminished, and I'm going to add a couple of words to amplify that. By re-perceiving a past traumatic experience with new whole brain filters, clients could be freed from the automaticity of past perceptions which limit their happiness and well-being. Like, it's not just about happiness and well-being. It's about everything. And I don't just mean everything inside of you. I mean everything. like how you connect with other people. I'll get onto that in a moment. How you connect with your pets and members of society, how you connect with your customers or your co-workers or your potential whatever's you're going to be doing. You can't seemingly do much without moving your brain in some way, just like you can't seemingly do much without having a heart pump the materials needed, as well as coordinate that entire system. The heart at the center brings it all around. But the things that these things do, I'm getting a little bit off track. I'll just stick to the paper for the moment. In addition to its usefulness as a tool for dealing more effectively with life's challenges, past, present, and future, the whole brain state has another major benefit. It can be used as a foundation for quickly and effectively changing self-limiting subconscious beliefs, as a foundation for quickly and the research that follows utilized Psych-K, that's the spelling I spelled out at the start, a popular system for subconscious change. This system has been used by psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, professional performance coaches, and others for over 23 years. This is a testament to its versatility in the hands of a professionally trained psychotherapist. It is an effective therapeutic tool. In the hands of a sports performance coach, it is a way to dramatically enhance sporting ability and even healing, retaining body capacity. Used as a tool by educators and parents, it can significantly help students achieve academic success. And I kid you not, when you see the data based on kids who go to their exams at the end of their schooling terms, the kids that freeze up as soon as they sit down versus the kids that would freeze up but then instead write anywhere between 90 and 100% of their answers because they're not stressed when they sit down for the test because they're in a whole brain state for the test. And in a whole brain state, the information comes out without any obligations, obstructions. When it's not in a whole brain state, the information has to be coordinated and bounced back and forth within a certain amount of time with a certain amount of resources, which means that things are being cut and short-handed. Then you get incorrect memory, interpreted data instead of memory, thought instead of memory. All of these different things start to become a lot more common. Heal thyself and your clients too. The powerful influence of the whole brain state was demonstrated in a study reported in 1988 in the International Journal of Neuroscience by researchers at Universidad Nacional Autónoma in Mexico. Reference number 3 at the bottom, it suggests that synchronized brain states significantly influence nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is also non-local communication. Nonverbal and non-local communication is scientific speech for telepathy. This study was done with 13 paired subjects. The subjects were tested in a darkened and soundproof Faraday cage, a lead-lined, screened chamber that filters out all outside electromagnetic activity. Each pair of subjects was instructed to close their eyes and try to communicate by becoming aware of each other's presence and to signal the experimenter when they felt it had occurred. The brainwave states of the subjects were monitored during this process. Experimenters reported that during the session, an increase in similarity of EEG, electroencephalogram, patterns between the pairs of communicators developed. Furthermore, the experimenters noticed the subject with the highest concordance, hemispheric integration, was the one who most influenced the session. End quote. In other words, when you're in a whole brain state, your brainwave pattern can automatically affect your client in a very positive way, even before you communicate verbally. These conclusions support the allegation that our thoughts, even non-verbally expressed, can influence others. In fact, the more whole-brained we become, the more we influence others towards the state of being as well. The therapeutic benefit of this kind of influence on therapists as well as their clients is obviously self-evident. Very cool. Because we've got to remember that when we're having issues, we're trying to pull away from people and be separate from them. In order to heal things and resolve issues, we need to come back together and restore connections. We don't just resolve issues by creating chasms, burning bridges, and then not doing anything about it. Such would end in a blackened and charred world with nothing new being created. We need to create new things. So get out there and create new things. And when you create new things want to be created will be attracted to you. And that's why people will be entrained to your thinking in a positive way, is because positive thinking, positive energy, the universe seems to be positively charged. That's the reason why we orient up with north and down is south, and not up as south and down as north. Is because we have this natural inclination within human psychology and awareness, likely through the hematic or magnetic crystals within our brains and glands, that we have a natural inclination towards the direction of the universe and its desire to go in the swimming of these currents. Back onto the paper. QEEG and the whole brain state. Our research gathering documented 125 cases with data gathered over 12 months in 3 different locations, utilizing different EEG technicians using 2 different types of EEG equipment. The result of this investigation produced a p-value of less than or equal to 0.010. A baseline of EEG, I can't recall. I think that's P2, is it? P3? I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. A baseline of electroencephalogram data was established for each use. 3 baseline readings of 5 minutes each were recorded. 5 minutes eyes open, 5 minutes eyes closed, 5 minutes with brain on task, i.e. silently reading a magazine. A certified Psych-K facilitator used standards Psych-K. A corporate version is identified as per-K practices. This is a process for subconscious belief change to activate the whole brain state. Following the intervention of the Psych-K change process, a post-intervention EEG was recorded in the same manner as the EEG baseline stated above. Now, I skipped over the brackets there, saying AKA balance. A thing in Psych-K, a thing that we do, an action that we take to address something is called a balance. Contextually, it could have been a little bit confusing, so I just left it out. Finished the sentence, added the context. Back on. The balance, as in the process, took approximately 10 minutes to complete. Raw EEG data was artifacted to eliminate eye movement, tongue movement, swallowing, or other unwanted disturbances in the EEG. Very important, because just breathing, moving, using facial muscles changes your brain activity. So they're really doing the best they can to get the most accurate scientific readings that they can here, and they're detailing the entire process for us all so that way we know they're above board. Neurostat, a function of the NeuroGuide program from Applied Neuroscience, performed a statistical analysis. Neurostat allows for individual independent t-tests to be performed. The following is an example from a base of 125 cases examined for the whole brain state. The independent t-test compares condition A to condition B and shows if there are differences in the dominant brain function. When we consider Shannon's method of statistical analysis in reference number 4, we understand that when we measure 2 groups, A and B, such as pre-balance and post-balance, each of them having a well-defined probability distribution respectively, as well as a joint probability distribution, then the mutual information between A and B is defined. The concept of mutual information can easily be extended to quantum systems of entanglement. This leads us to understand that having quantum mutual information which for a general state of either A and or B is now defined and provides the basis by which the relationship could be understood. A sample depiction of the whole brain state seen in figure 1. So figure 1, following Psych-K balance, this person demonstrated a statistically significant shift in hemispheric coherence patterns, which were reflected behaviorally in increased access to emotional resources and integrated whole brain behaviors and relationships. So, that's really bad quality. If I recall, I can't remember which one it is. Can we see any letters here? Like, anyway, the blue and the red is the left and the right of the cap, so it's detecting where the electrical currents are going. You can see clearly there that the left brain reaches into the right brain reaches into the left brain, and they bounce across the different fields. It's very interesting. Figure 1 is labeled as FFT, Coherence Independent T-Test P-Value. To better understand the scientific significance of this report, understanding the significance of P-Value will help to put this research into perspective. In statistical significance testing, I thought it was, the P-Value is the probability of obtaining a test statistic at least as extreme as the one that was actually observed. When the result falls at 0.05 or 0.01, is said to be statistically significant. In the case of the Fannin-Williams research, a very high degree of statistical significance occurred, and that was less than or greater to 0.010. This indicates that the relationship between the two phenomena is highly significant and not a function of chance or random unknown performance variables. The colors on the independent t-test show phenomena A, dominant brainwave pattern before the Psych-K balance is depicted in red left side, and phenomena B, dominant brainwave pattern after the Psych-K balance was facilitated, is depicted in blue right side. The whole brain state is considered to be a combination of red left side condition A, dominance prior to the balance process, and condition B, right side dominance after the balance process was facilitated. Due to the space restriction of this article, it is not possible to provide a comprehensive treatment of the subject or the numerous changes that a majority of subjects in this research experienced. However, the volume of data collected and the unique properties it represents afford us the opportunity to evaluate and continue to understand what the data means, as well as providing intriguing hints as to the nature of its potential. Singularly, the most significant information to come from this research in 98% of the cases measured presented very high statistical significant correlations, demonstrating the difference between baseline measures and the presence of the whole brain state after the intervention occurred. As mentioned above, just before the whole brain state is present does not mean that it is being continually activated, so the person can take full advantage of it in a given situation. Sometimes secondary gain issues come into play of other subconscious belief patterns. If you're a healer, you know all about secondary gain and whiplash that comes from that may need to be addressed in order to effectively activate and or allow the person to fully use the whole brain state. The whole brain state is better understood for some education regarding a few of its more unfamiliar components. Figure 1 uses the term coherence. This is an energy signature. In physics, coherence is a property of waves that enables stationary, atemporally and spatially constant to brainwave function. Right. More generally, coherence describes all properties of the correlation between physical quantities of a wave. This is important in order to understand the physics of resonating wave patterns in the brain, its connection to the whole brain state, and how it impacts our behavior. An additional component to the whole brain state is identified as constructive and destructive interference patterns. If two waves are interacting with one another in such a way that they combine to create a wave of greater amplitude than either one by itself, the result is called constructive interference. That's what I was saying about the evolution, is when you have two things working in, two or more things working in polarity, and they produce something greater than the sum of the parts. Constructive interference. In biology, we usually call that birth or emergence of something new. Constructive interference is said to occur when waves are in phase with one another. However, in the waves interface with each other, if the waves interface with each other in such a way as to diminish the amplitude of the other, a destructive interference pattern is created. In this case, the waves are said to be out of phase with each other. Phase is important in brainwave patterns as it is in other principles of physics. That is to say, two waves are said to be coherent if they have a constant relative phase. See figure 2, the peak of each wave is moving in the same direction at the same time. The degree of coherence is measured by the interference visibility. The measure of how perfectly the waves can cancel due to destructive interference in figure 3. Cancellation is virtual or local, since a wave cannot have negative energy. So here's the different combinations of constructive, destructive interference. You've got the bottom one here. C on the left under figure 2 is the amplitude of it. B is where they sort of coincide but don't interact. B on both sides is where they correlate but don't interact. And then you've got C in the destructive, which is basically an elimination of it. They cancel each other out and either destroy each other with larger resounding effects, or due to energy being forced out of that immediate environment, or they just cancel each other out, never existed in the first place, as in null and void each other. Constructive interference, as seen in figure 2, which is the one on the left, would be like two sets of ripples moving across the surface of the water toward each other, as seen in depiction A. Both waves A and B are moving. I'm just going to skip that bit. Significance of this principle of physics is fundamental to the coherence of the whole brain state, allowing brain wave energy to be more focused and effective at resolving problems and accessing information, with ability to not only resonate properly to influence brain function, but also interact with subconscious beliefs. If you wanted to read that bit, just pause it. Emotional engagement and subconscious beliefs. From a neuroscience perspective, the basis of understanding why we experience particular emotions is centered at the relationship between the anterior cingulate cortex, ACC, and the amygdala. The amygdala, usually thought of as the fear detector, also detects all other emotions. Usually thought of as a fear detector. To my understanding, it's much better thought of as a context taker, as the amygdala will take a reward and turn it into a negative experience in the wrong context. And it's not just necessarily about fear, although fear has a large component to it. So when fear is the most significant emotion in the brain, the amygdala will respond. So if you're flooding your brain with fear, the amygdala will pick up on that. When fear is the most dominant emotion in your thinking, it taxes the subconscious mind, which does most of the fast processing of information. Fear taxes the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind meaning the fear taxes you outside of your awareness. Fear does things to you that you can't detect. The amygdala in the middle, the anterior cingulate cortex, front part of the, Person who left a secure job to pursue a dream started to read statistics about how unlikely it was to be a successful entrepreneur. The amygdala would likely have been stimulated and making her more anxious. As a result, her subconscious fears would be active, even when she was thinking about other things, even if she was trying to be positive thinking about it. Scientific experiments found that when fearful facial expressions were shown that people did not know they had seen them, the amygdala was still activated. So your brain does things outside of your awareness. The amygdala is connected to multiple brain regions. One of those regions, frontal lobe, where many important decisions are processed. The amygdala is activated, the activation, prefrontal cortex. Yeah. One of those regions, frontal lobe, many important decisions are processed. If the amygdala is activated, the activation affects various regions in the frontal lobe, particularly the prefrontal cortex, and thereafter affects decision-making as well as emotional centers. We can recognize that we are vulnerable to fear and anxiety in such a way that it compromises our own abilities to attend to relevant content. The impact of this is that it consumes our thinking resources. It taxes our thinking. It taxes our mind. We should also understand that the amygdala is the emotional relevance detector rather than just a fear detector. Emotional relevance. Relevance is context. The amygdala PFC connection, prefrontal cortex connection, is important because a part of it acts as short-term memory and another part as the accountant of the brain calculating risks and benefits of our thinking. Subconscious threats overactivate the amygdala and lead to a decline in thinking and productivity when we focus on negative statements such as, how am I ever going to keep up with everything? What if I fail? What if I can't afford food or gas or healthcare? On what do I make? The government isn't doing much to help me or my family, so the odds of success are stacked against me. What if I get laid off? Or I'm not smart enough to be successful. Sound familiar? Or any of the millions and billions of variants that float through most of our minds on a daily basis. Yeah, you're not alone. 95% of people, 95% of the majority of the population have a brain that automatically does that to themselves. According to the American Psychological Association, these kinds of negative thought patterns can create what could be identified as an amygdala hijacking. The amygdala kicks into action in preparation for fight or flight, creating unacceptable levels of anxiety and fear at a subconscious level that negatively impact our behavior and productivity. The subconscious patterning becomes part of the default network and will keep us focused on looking out for danger. The authors of this paper contend that entering into what we call the whole brain state will move the brain out of negative default mode and allow access to more resourceful thinking processes. High-speed mindset change taught in Psych-K is an effective method for identifying and changing the conflict between the conscious and subconscious beliefs. Let me add to that. The subconscious patterning becomes part of the default network. Fight or flight, creating unacceptable levels of anxiety and fear at a subconscious level that negatively impact our behavior and productivity. Okay, so when you're consciously engaging your fear, have you ever had a belly stomach ache or a palpitation of some kind? Have you ever felt your kidney get upset, or your bladder or your liver? These are signs of what's going on internally, because you've got to remember that immediately as soon as any of this is hitting anywhere in the brain, this is what's important to remember. The subconscious mind is also activating and causing glandular releases from your endocrine system in the form of stress-based hormones to perform in fight or flight. Those stress-based hormones will decenter you and push you away from being in a state of communication, problem solving, resolution, connection, and harmony and healing. Fight or flight is a temporary state that we use for survival. It is not a daily activity state that we remain in. A lot of people are overburdened, and that's what CPTSD is, the subconscious mind, with the amygdala kicking in left and right. Every time something reminds them of this negative thing, the amygdala goes, and as soon as the amygdala goes, the kidney goes, and the liver goes, like that, and then adrenaline comes out, cortisol comes out, all of the other bits and pieces of your stress hormones come out, and all of a sudden your thinking is causing you biological damage and preventing you from healing. So if you're in a hospital and you're full of fear because you've got cancer, you're stopping yourself from healing. You are stopping yourself from healing. Not stopping yourself, you are contributing to your inability to heal. Worry is another component related to normal brain function. It is the brain's response to fear. It is thought of as a response of the brain to block out negative emotions that reside in the subconscious. Some neuroscientists have suggested that worry is a strategy of cognitive avoidance in which internal verbalization acts to suppress threatening emotional imagery. It is believed that worry leads to missing important negative information such as risk that may be relevant to making optimal decisions. This information is mostly subconscious. Worry disrupts the brain bridge, the corpus callosum, pointed out, figure 8, we'll see, and shows the transfer time across from the left to the right hemisphere. Changes the transfer time. Changes the transfer time between one half and the other half of your brain. Limits your capacity and resources and pushes you down in who and what you are. Are you getting it yet? Taking additional time for processing without creating a solution to the problem. People who are constantly worried often see this worry as an attempt to find a solution, but may in fact be stuck in worry. That usually keeps productivity to a minimum. The whole brain state increases communication between the left and right hemispheres of the brain and speeds up the transfer of information across the corpus callosum, thereby diminishing the capacity to worry without excluding or ignoring important information, leading to a productive behavior. And there's the corpus callosum. Simply, yeah. We put the center of the brain back in, and then close that back out again. Okay. Pop that one back in there. And you can see here the authors of this paper point to the research herein, which suggests that the whole brain state allows access to the interhemispheric activity, connecting to more efficient brain function. Further, we would have you understand that from the research presented here, we identify the whole brain state as bilateral, symmetrical, brainwave pattern, allowing access to positive mood and cognitive openness. In conclusion, we suggest that this research demonstrates a significant connection between beliefs, especially at the subconscious level of the mind, the whole brain state, and high-speed mindset change, as well as their relevant utility to psychotherapists. The data presented here strongly suggests a correlation between the state of mind of the psychotherapist and the state of mind of the patient client, hence the relevancy of doing psychotherapy from a whole brain state with the appropriate subconscious belief systems in order to be optimally effective as a catalyst for change. And for anyone out there doing business, and this is the reason why you would want to hire somebody like myself, imagine meeting clients that you're making a sale with in a whole brain state. So your whole brain is picking up and interacting and coupling with your customer's mind, already feeding you the information that they're asking for before they even know what they're asking for, giving you the ability to provide them options and wow them by your intuitive awareness of what they're looking for before they even ask for it. These are all really, really cool things to be explored in all areas of life. Like it emphasized earlier in the paper, this paper is important to understand in regards to what area of your life? Every area of your life. Every area. References. There's just a few of them there. By the way, the guy who did this, who did the Psych-K, Rob, sadly passed away not too long ago. Fantastic, as amazing as he was, We all have journeys to make at some point or another. But he was a practicing qualified, I can't remember whether he was a psychologist, psychotherapist, or psychiatrist, something. And he was practicing for a long time and wasn't happy with the way that his customers had to keep coming back. He felt like he was drip feeding them as opposed to sort of helping them overcome their issues. And he wanted to make sure that his clients stopped coming back because they had no more issues. Not because they were cured by him, but because they were given the empowerment to take charge of their own life. When you can see the impacts of this in the entire body and how this correlates with our psycho-neuro-endocrinology, immunology, psycho-neuro-immunology, PNI as I sometimes call it, really shows us how thinking and just thinking alone, stress, can completely govern and prove your entire concept of a placebo effect, mind over matter, healing with the mind, healing yourself with nothing external. You'd literally do things like take a glass of water, intent the water with your mind, and then ingest that to affect literal change in you. And it's not because you're putting something magical in the water and the water is now doing something magical to you. It's because you're manipulating your brain and giving it a capacity to open up its own whole brain state in order to be able to do what it needs to do. It does not always stay in a whole brain state, and whole brain states sustained for long periods of time from people who don't meditate regularly or have lots of practice with this. It's actually very exhausting. Very exhausting, because you are a powerful being. Okay, the example that they use in the information here is another one that I want to just touch on very quickly, is the data processing between the two of them, right? That was just after the image, if I recall. I guess gone past it, but the idea that no, this is a really important point for me to finish on. Yeah, okay. So you're trying to affect change in your mind utilizing, it's not accurate 100%, although it paints a scene that is somewhat accurate. The specific numbers are likely incorrect. However, again, it's the scene that is more accurate, and we know the scene, and then that's where people who know the scene try to use examples to describe the scene, and that's where they're using this example. So that's their example. Don't get caught up on the information of 40 bits of information per second that has recently been disproven, and it's actually a lot more than that. However, the correlation between the amount of information in the conscious and the amount of information in the subconscious is evident and clear. Your conscious mind is so very small and tiny in its capacity compared to the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind isn't even where you stop, because the subconscious mind feeds directly into the greater unconscious mind, and that's where things get into all sorts of interesting discussions about non-local fields of consciousness, interaction between the global humanity itself in the noosphere or the morphogenic fields, and other things like this. Things that science really has issues with at the moment. But in these areas of science, the scientific community is actually lagging behind, so they're not the experts in it. This is evidence right here of what we're talking about. You literally have a scientific paper here stating that after extensive amounts of research and rigorous scientific testing protocols set up, that it's very clear that just by taking a little bit of time to process your brain into a centered state, so that way the information is not blocking itself or causing internal, again, it's electrical, so we'll use the terms electrical destructive interference via the electrical currents within your brain, or the wave functions of your brain. If these electrical currents moving through your brain are coming across the corpus callosum and they're going like this, then you're having issues within your mind. But if your brain is going like this and it's moving about the place and you're trying to come to a solution and then your brain hits that right space and it goes, and you go, oh, I have an epiphany. That's because your brain just coordinated all the planets and all the systems in alignment, and it sent that bit of information straight down the tunnel to you for your front office to go, well, I got the post-it. I got the post-it note. Okay, well, this is what we're going to do today. It's a good thing that I made that decision, because I made that decision. I'm the one that's holding the post-it. That's the conscious mind in a nutshell right there. Except, very rarely do we ask where the post-it came from. Who wrote the post-it? Why did they write the post-it? And how did they find out the information in order to put on the post-it? This is it right here. It's the beginning of it. There's going to be a couple more videos about this that I've got coming out, and we will continue to investigate whether or not brain interaction across space without direct contact is possible or just fantasy. It's actually already been clearly defined and proven in so many tests that it's utterly ridiculous that we still have to prove this. But that's the point, is it's not about the proof. The proof is everywhere. The point is about belief. Because if you don't believe, there's no amount of proof that will come to you. You will look at every piece of proof and go, well, that's irrelevant because it doesn't mean it, because I don't believe in that. This doesn't matter because it wasn't conducted by a government. This doesn't matter because the media isn't reporting about it. This doesn't matter because this person disagreed with it. This doesn't matter because I don't believe in woo-woo or whatever. Your beliefs will change what information you accept or not. Your beliefs do not define what is real and what is not. Your beliefs give you the ability to interact with or prevent you from interacting with what is real. Hemispheric coordination and mind gym training is amazing. Just the same as your heart and your belly. Learn about your mind. Learn about yourself. And learn about your being. Tapping my belly. All three of these centers are very important and hold powerful things for you in navigating your reality in ways that we're just starting to learn more about in the Western world. Right. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. Go back to what you were doing beforehand. Bye.